604 Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane, off and running. Brian here with you, John LaBeouf producing, starting you off at 75 degrees in downtown Baton Rouge. Getting you geared up for Monday's show, getting you geared up for Memorial Day week. Love Memorial Day week. It just things like ramp up, or I should say start closing down as you get closer to the weekend. People start cutting out of town. It becomes a ghost town by Friday. All the way through the weekend. All right, you got school wrapping up. We had graduations over the weekend. A lot going on out of the state capitol, a lot going on nationally as well. So let's dive right in. Top stories and trending. Let's go.
Number 5.
Hometown hero John Foster was almost there. Little pun on one of the songs he sang along the way. He placed second in the 2025 American Idol. That was WBRZ's pun, not mine. Got to give them full credit for that. Placed second in the 2025 American Idol competition. The 18-year-old Bruley High graduate and LSU student sang his way through the competition into the top 2 on Sunday night. Came up just short. So close.
Number 4.
Funeral services for former East Baton Rouge Mayor President Melvin Kip Holden have been announced. They are scheduled for this Thursday at 11 a.m. At the Greater King David Baptist Church on Blunt Road. Before the funeral, there will be a visitation from 8 a.m. until 10:45 a.m. And I believe his body will lie in state over at City Hall the day before.
Number 3.
Police are looking for 37-year-old Casey Warren, a man who allegedly left his girlfriend to die after a domestic altercation Sunday morning. BRPD said the officers were called to a home near the corner of Gerald and San Clemente Drives around 10 a.m. Found 31-year-old Alicia Thomas. The situation is being investigated as a domestic homicide. Officers are still actively looking for Warren.
Number 2.
Deputies responded to a fatal shooting at Tanglewood Apartments early this morning. The shooting happened around 3:30 a.m. Officials said of the 2 people involved, one was taken to the hospital. The other died from their injuries. There was no information about what led to the shooting or the victim's identity.
Number 1.
Officials have increased the reward for the capture of 7 inmates who escaped from a New Orleans jail, OPP, by fleeing through a hole behind a toilet. FBI Special Agent Jonathan Trapp said at a news conference that 7 of the 10 men who originally escaped on Friday are still at large. FBI is now offering $10,000 per inmate. This is on top of the $5,000 being offered by ATF and the $2,000 being offered by Crime Stoppers. What's trending, John?
Well, the FBI have identified 25-year-old Guy Edward Bartkiss of 29 Palms, California, as the person they say is responsible for the explosion of a Palm Springs fertility clinic.
So, and he's the only one who died, as I understand it. Everything in the fertility clinic survived. Like all the embryos in the fertility clinic made it through. Very, very bizarre story.
Yeah.
Absolutely bizarre story. I don't know how much more we're going to find out, though. You know, this feels like when it's over with. You know, he was the only one that was affected by it, really. So
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is an insane story. So, from what I've read, you just kind of hit a wall with it. I mean, there's not too much information.
But did you see the video?
Okay,
Like,
I'm going to say that I did
okay,
not see the video.
The explosion, he smacked into the one wall. The explosion blasted out the other side of the building into the street.
Oh yeah. Really fascinating. Yeah, I'm going to have to watch the video then.
But I do hope we find out more about motive and what like nihilism and I don't know. There was so much going on over the weekend. I only paid so much time to this.
Right.
Paid so much attention to this, you know. But what I did learn was just weird.
No, for sure. Yeah. This is not something you hear every day. People aren't attacking fertility clinics. Another news, former President Joe Biden has been diagnosed with prostate cancer, his office said on Sunday.
Very advanced prostate cancer that is apparently already in his bones.
Yeah.
That's
metastasis of the bones. Very aggressive.
That you hate to see it. I mean, he's in his 80s. Like, you know that.
Yeah. 82. I mean, what are we? I don't know. Regardless of your politics, you know, when another human being, you know, faces something like this, it's just devastating for sure.
But to have something that advanced, early detection is the key to everything.
Right.
But to have something that advanced for a former president, like the best medical care in the world goes to the president of the United States.
That's correct.
It's sad.
Indeed it is. Well, the two Brits, Jace and Josh, have returned home to the UK. Before departing, they put out a message thanking America and singling out Louisiana for their hospitality.
They even apologized for mispronouncing everything. I thought that was especially funny.
They did.
But no, they really did show like we're built different here in Louisiana.
Oh, for sure.
Not just for eating weird things, but for the way we treat those who visit us. We don't just welcome people in; we adopt them.
That's
And
correct.
that's it. It's that the verbiage finally hit me over the weekend. We don't just welcome people; we adopt them. And they went home feeling like they're going to belong here forever, which is awesome.
Yeah,
which is what we want from everybody.
Yeah,
so,
reading Josh's post the other day, I was just like, man, that's so good.
I know.
That's what you want. Like such a positive, something for them to take back.
Yeah. The picture of them outside the airport looking all bummed and whatnot. That was funny. And from what I understand, I've now talked to 3 different people who interacted with them directly. Yeah. And every one of them was like, this was a whirlwind. It was amazingly fast. And everyone was like, they did their level best to actually dive into wherever they were. And as fast as they were going, they did their best to dive into wherever they were. And the third thing that all 3 said across the board was everything they did felt genuine. Now you never know. You never know if it's an act or whatever. It's content. It's theater. It's meant to be. But was it a Huey Long saying, or am I misattributing this? He says that the number one key to politics is authenticity. Once you could fake that, you got it made. Does that apply to all content out there? You know, but at least it felt genuine.
Right.
So 7-11 at Talk 107.3, 6-11 at Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Look, told you it's Memorial Day week.
Yeah,
man.
Here we go.
We got to take a quick break. Come back. We'll do sports in just a second. Before that break, though, got to remind you about the folks over at Landmark Bank. LandmarkBankLA.com is the website. LandmarkBankLA.com. Founded in 1897. You want to talk about doing it differently here in Louisiana? This is what we get over at Landmark Bank. You get that level of hospitality. You get that level of personal relationship when you walk into any of the locations of Landmark Bank, whether you're talking about the home base in Zachary, or they get 2 locations in Zachary, but about Clinton, Greensburg, Denham, over on the west side in Brewley. They've got you covered with a banker, not just a bank. Business banking, personal banking. You want to take on that loan to that HELOC to expand your house. You want to buy a new house. You want to dive into the entrepreneurship world. They've got you covered for whatever it is you need, personally or in business, and have done so as a community bank since 1897. Check them out online at landmarkbankla.com. Hey, we're going to pivot here.
Okay.
I didn't want Jim Ryan at 6:25. I wanted him at 6:35, and they gave him to me at 6:25. So that's going to interrupt where. So here's what I want to do here. Let me forward you Let's do softball first.
Okay.
What's the final call?
I was going to ask you about the final call for the baseball one as well. I guess that's 9.3. Just to confirm.
Yes.
9.3.
Did you read the description on it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
9.3.
Strikeout and final call.
Yep. Just wanted to double check.
You know what? I don't see a final call on here. Damn it. Skip it. Never mind.
Okay.
All right. We're still going to talk softball here as well.
Okay.
We're going to push back baseball to 35.
Okay.
616 Talk 1073 FM WBRP mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. It is sports time here. Sports is going to be a little bit broken up this morning as we got baseball and softball to talk about. Normally we do them in back-to-back segments, but I got access to ABC's Jim Ryan in our next segment, so we're going to split it up a little bit, as it were. All right. First and foremost, LSU baseball will be playing Friday in the SEC baseball tournament. They are the 3 seed. Number one team in the country is the 3 seed in a conference tournament. That's neither here nor there. We can't know who LSU is playing until we get deeper into action out in Hoover. We'll break that down at 6:35. We'll also give you a recap of the South Carolina series at 6:35 as well. The short answer there: they took 2 out of 3. They lost the first game and took 2 out of 3. But we'll break that down a little bit further coming up at 6:35. Moving over to softball, season's over with, y'all. Season comes up short too, man, this has been a winding road for LSU softball this season, and a lot of folks felt like this was going to be a pivotal year for Coach Beth Torina. When you rewind the clock back to pre-conference play, this team was undefeated in non-conference games, not just midweek games, like the good games on the front end too. The Southeastern Conference in softball is just beastly. It is from top to bottom. You get some of the best teams in the country that you're squaring off against every single week. So when you went into regional play as the 10 seed overall, meaning you would host a regional but not a super, when you went into regional play, the hope was that you survive your region and just survive and move on. Wasn't the case, though, over the weekend. LSU ran into a Southeastern team that really should not have been a 4 seed. Probably should have been a 2, if not a 3 seed. And probably should have been sent somewhere else, if we're being completely honest. But the Lions come into Tiger Park on Friday, post up a win, 3-4 over or 4-3 over LSU. Moves LSU to the losers bracket in their own regional, where they took on UConn. On Saturday. They beat UConn on Saturday to stay alive. Meanwhile, Nebraska beat Southeastern. So it was LSU and Southeastern once again for the right to move on, to go ahead and take on Nebraska in the championship. And this game, the second game on Saturday, was back and forth. You saw Southeastern had, I want to say it was a 2-run lead going into the 6th. LSU tied it up. Southeastern was the home team in this one because they had won previously. They post up a run in the bottom of the 6th to go up 7-6, and then LSU ties it up at 7 in the 7th. And then, well, unfortunately, the season comes to a close with an 8-7 loss to the Southeastern Lions. So where does this leave LSU softball? Where does this leave Beth Torina? I think there's going to be a lot of questions floating around out there after this season. She's got I haven't gone through player by player, but she's got a decent chunk of freshmen. There's it's always disappointing to lose prematurely. But at the same time, though, there's a roster that has a lot to look forward to, and a coach who I still have faith in. I don't know. I see a lot of people talking on social media, but she's one that I still have faith in. So we're at 620 at Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Quick break. ABC's Jim Ryan joins us next. Oh, I hate that break is that short. All right, let's take you back to the Shawbills Tire Traffic Center and see what we got going on right now. There is actually heavier than normal volume for this time of morning by the Range Avenue exit in Denham Springs. It actually starts right at the exit. Now you're going to pick back up again once you're on 12 westbound and moving, but as you're approaching Range Avenue and as you get through Range Avenue, it is kind of stop and go right now. Now once it picks back up, which it does so before the Amy River, you're good to go all the way through the rest of that drive on 12 westbound right now. Moving over to I-10 westbound. There is nothing really going on from Ascension Parish all the way in. As you make your way through the city, you're looking good as well. Now, as you go to hop up onto the bridge, right before the bridge at the 10-110 split, Baton Rouge police are reporting that there's a stalled vehicle in the roadway, 10 westbound in between the 10-110 split and the Mississippi River Bridge. However, I'm not showing any delays as a result of that. Flipping around to 10 eastbound coming in from West Baton Rouge Parish, we're looking good. And I-110 is looking great in both directions as well. Surface streets, we're clear. That's your look at traffic from the Shawbills Tire Traffic Center. .624 Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. We're waiting on Jim Ryan right now from ABC News. And the reason for that is I saw this news story over the weekend and could not let go of it. I am fascinated with deep fakes. Fascinated with AI, but I'm fascinated with deep fakes especially. Drop him on hold so you can get the hotline. Drop him on hold so you get the hotline. So the latest story coming out is that the FBI has renewed a public warning about an ongoing text and voice messaging campaign using artificial intelligence to impersonate senior U.S. officials. Joining us now to talk about that is ABC News' Jim Ryan. Jim, how are you, man?
Hey, Brian, how are you? Yeah, and this one is very specific in a way. The FBI says that it's high-level government officials, senators or department heads, people in the higher levels in government, in many cases reaching out to lower-level government employees in order to get passwords or get access into computers, federal government computers. And it's very sneaky. It's very convincing. The voice sounds very much like a federal department head, and so, yeah, the FBI is renewing that one, but also renewing the warnings to the public about the generative AI deepfakes that are going on out there. There's a Dallas City Council race going on right now here, in which a supporter of one candidate created a deepfake using audio from the opposing candidate, that a podcast that he had done, setting it to video that makes him look, slovenly or like he doesn't care. It's sort of like a slouchy guy, but it wasn't him at all. In the video, it's a completely made up and generated image, whereas the voice is the actual candidate. So this is happening not just at the federal level, but even in local elections and even, within individual families.
How much can be done to actually combat this? Because and where I'm going with this, Jim, is especially in the in the political realm and in the world, how much can be done to stop it? Because I feel like once the cat's out of the bag, the retraction never gets the attention as the mistake.
Well, that's true, and you're absolutely right. And we're finding that here in this Dallas City Council race. It's a runoff election. It's a local race. But once that video gets out there, that video's out there.
Right.
You're right, and you can't recapture it somehow from every source. And the candidate is now running around trying to tamp out the political fire that's coming about because of this. And wasting time and resources, not campaigning, but trying to combat this piece of AI craftsmanship. So there are issues there, and there are laws that have been created. In fact, the Texas legislature is looking at a law that would combat this kind of thing. At the federal level, there are also laws. But in terms of the technology, man, artificial intelligence is growing so fast. The technology is getting so good that it's getting very difficult to spot those deep fakes.
And not to mention the fact that no matter what law is created, you're talking about U.S. laws versus a worldwide web. So farming this out overseas, I know I'm sounding pessimistic to start off a Monday morning, but I feel like there's more traps than there are safe passages here.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. Yeah, and it's a problem in the political realm, but it's also a problem with scammers targeting everyday people.
Yes.
My dad got a call a few years ago from my son. My son was in jail in Las Vegas and pleading with him to send him some money to get out of jail. Couldn't call me because he was afraid I'd be mad. So he called my dad. He says, Grandpa, I really need help. And so my dad was tempted to go ahead and send him money. But then he thought to himself, Brian, he says, he doesn't call me Grandpa. He calls me Granddad. That one little thing, that one little slip of the word can, tipped him off that this was not his grandson at all. He called his grandson my son. He wasn't in jail. He was, he was in college. And here's kind of the point the FBI is making now. Families need to establish a password within that family and even reach out to kind of extended family members, cousins maybe, or aunts and uncles, and tell them, look, we're going to have a specific code word here. Mm-hmm. Okay. And if you call me, I'm going to ask you for that code word. If you're in trouble asking for money, and if not, it may be an AI generated deep fake, because they're getting very good, Brian.
Absolutely. They are. Back to the top of the page though, with the the senior U.S. officials being impersonated via AI. Yeah. An investigation of something like this, how quickly can they root out the problem and get to the wrongdoers?
Well, getting to the wrongdoers is a great thing. I mean, it's almost untraceable, you're right, because so many of these things are originating from overseas. The FBI has not said which U.S. officials' voices or images were generated or were deep faked. But it says it's working on this, trying to find out who's responsible and get to the bottom of it, and then to purge those things off the internet. But I mean, you're right, Brian. Once the horse is out of the barn, it's really hard to rein this in.
I mean, this has gone so far, so fast from the days of, it was just like 2 years ago when you'd get the email circulating from your boss saying, I'm stuck in a meeting right now, so don't call, but I need you to go grab a bunch of gift cards. This is so far beyond that so quickly.
Yeah, you're right. And by the way, that call to my dad was made by a human scammer. And now, I mean, if you find somebody's voice on an Instagram posting or a Facebook post, you take that and run it through AI, you can get that voice to sound like it's saying pretty much anything. And videos that look like they're doing things that those people aren't actually doing. So
the video is the scary part. Yeah, the video is the really scary part.
Brave new world.
Yeah, absolutely. He is ABC's Jim Ryan. We always appreciate the time, man. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
Here's news. Good morning, Christy. Welcome in, sweetheart. You know what? Blast out the cuts that we're going to do at 6:52. I want to do it this way instead. I'm forwarding you the YouTube of the press conference itself. Any relief from the heat coming this week? Well, let's check in on our forecast. WBRZ meteorologist Emma Kate Cowan. I am going to use the American Idol cuts too, though. Okay, here. Going back to LSU and then American Idol. 637 Talk 1073 FM, WBRP, Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Before we dive back in here, well, actually, no, let's just go ahead and dive back in. We got sports that got split up. The last segment was the only chance I had to get at ABC's Jim Ryan, so I definitely did not want to miss out on that. It's a big news story that will continue to evolve. Obviously, it was going to be overshadowed this morning when ranking headlines because, number one, former president's got cancer. Number two, like 24 people, actually more than that, were killed in Kentucky in a tornado. I mean, you got the fertility clinic thing, or the fertility clinic bombing, the terrorist bombing. There's always going to be something ranking higher in terms of what is leading your A block, what's in the A block of your news. But the AI story is not going away, and it continues to evolve. So I appreciate Jim Ryan hopping on board. I'll give you the rest of the rundown real quick. We've got Medical Monday coming your way at 7:15. Dr. Catherine O'Neill. We all know her, remember her work throughout COVID. That's exactly what we're talking about, taking a look back at the pandemic. Our Lady of the Lake's doing an oral history. We'll talk with her at 7:15. Patrick Robinson from Lobby hops on board at 7:35. Going to talk a little workers' comp this morning. And then in the 8 o'clock hour, it's predominantly about the legislative session. Moon Griffon at 8:15. State Representative Mark Wright at 8:35. Right now, though, let's go back to the sports end. LSU baseball got it done. Now, we're not going to see rankings or we're not going to see seedings for the postseason tournament. We're not until after the conference tournaments this weekend, which means we just kind of have to sit and wait. But LSU goes into Hoover knowing they're in the driver's seat. LSU goes in to SEC competition or SEC tournament competition knowing that they did what they needed to do on the back end of the season to hopefully secure one of those top 8 seeds, giving you both a regional and a super regional at Ellick Box Stadium. They needed to take 2 out of 3 from South Carolina. They did exactly that. Jay Johnson decided to hold Cade Anderson back until Friday to keep him on his normal rotation, his normal pitching rotation, giving him a little bit of the right amount of rest instead of trying to rush him out there on Thursday. Thursday, they lose 5-6. They post up an 8-1 win with Cade Anderson on the bump on Friday, and then come back on Saturday with Anthony Ianson pulling out a 7-3 win. Tigers and Gamecocks were actually tied at 2 apiece. I believe it was in the 5th inning when Daniel Dickinson decided to take things over.
Still a 2-2 count. Eskew comes set. Dickinson awaits, and the 2-2, and this one high in the air to left field. Going back is Jackson to the wall, and it's gone. Daniel Dickinson with a 2-run blast to left field. He joins the double-digit home run club. And the Tigers take the lead 4-2.
What a weekend so far for junior Daniel Dickinson. His second home run of the series, now has 4 RBI this weekend.
Chris Blair on the call, along with Bill Franquez right there from the LSU Sports Radio Network. The Tigers would eventually close it out. Got some, great performance by Anthony Ianson, but the bullpen help on the back end sealed the deal. In fact, ended up winning the ball game.
The 1-2 pitch. Swing, he went around, called strike 3, and that'll do it. Home plate umpire Scott Klein said you didn't hold back. Shores with the punch out, and the Tigers take the series 2-1. Pick up their 42nd win of the year to make them 42-13, 19-11 in SEC play for the Gamecocks. Their regular season comes to an end at 500, 28-28. They are 6-24 in SEC play. Jay Johnson and Paul Maneri shaking hands, a quick embrace, and the weekend is done here in the Palmetto State.
So who's LSU going to play in Hoover? Well, it's going to take a minute before we can find out, because they get that double bye. They're not going to be playing on Wednesday. They're not going to be playing on Thursday. They're not going to be playing until Friday. Tuesday or Wednesday. The tournament actually starts tomorrow with a slate of Alabama taking on Missouri, Oklahoma taking on Kentucky, South Carolina taking on Florida, and Mississippi State taking on Texas A&M. Now, that last game right there, the winner of Mississippi State and Texas A&M will move on to take on Auburn on Wednesday. After that game, the winner of the Auburn versus whoever wins between A&M and State, that is who LSU will play. And they won't play until 6:30, 7 o'clock on Friday night, believe it or not. So, as for LSU, you're not playing until the evening on Friday, which means for Cade Anderson, that's your normal start time. It's your normal week. It's business as usual. LSU doesn't need to do a whole lot in Hoover, but they're actually set up nicely to do so by having basically, the whole week to play, whereas everybody else has to start play even sooner. The other top seeds in the SEC tournament, Texas is your 1 seed. Arkansas is your 2, LSU is your 3, and Vanderbilt's your 4. If LSU wins, they'll move on to play whoever is playing Arkansas. You wouldn't have to face Texas until the championship game, or you wouldn't have to face the potential 1 seed until the championship game. So that's how things lay out on the baseball front. And then after Sunday, we'll know just who's coming to Baton Rouge and for how long. It is 6:44 at Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. John Foster, man, came so close. We'll talk about that in just a quick second. Got to mention the folks over at the Baton Rouge Metro Airport. You know where to find them online, right? FlyBTR.com. FlyBTR.com is the website for the Baton Rouge Metro Airport. Look, as you're booking your summer vacation with school wrapping up, if you haven't already done so, give a look at FlyBTR.com first, please, and take into account the entire package, not just the flight itself where you're going to, but all the other pieces, parts that equal up the whole equation. Driving an hour down the road, paying for parking down there versus parking here, or the difference between paying for parking down there versus Ubering when you're in your own backyard. Take into account how stress-free TSA is. when you're here in Baton Rouge. Take into account you're supporting a local business when you're here in Baton Rouge. All these things added up together make flying Baton Rouge, flying local, so much more appealing. It's convenient. There's options out there. And oh, by the way, I tell you all the time about the flight to DC. We fly to our nation's capital. They fly to our nation's capital every single day. Flight leaves out about a half an hour from right now, comes back in the evening. So if you got business in DC, you don't have to stay over. Flybtr.com is the website. John Foster. I love the way this is. We got this from our news partners over at Louisiana Radio Network. Apparently played his first ever gig last October. I mean, that is a quick 7 months, right? To go from playing your first ever gig to being runner-up on American Idol. And he did one heck of a job making it all the way to the final two. There was a watch party at the Bruley, walk-ons in Bruley. And he got nothing but love and support from his home crowd.
I think John did a really good job, and he came a long way.
We never thought he would make it this far. Top 2 of American Idol is very big achievement.
We were going for John Foster, but Jamal is really good also.
I do have to wonder about the proximity here. I mean, did American Idol, I'm not saying the voting was rigged. That's not what I'm saying at all. But not just American Idol, but the American Idol voters. Did they take into account, hey, Louisiana just had a guy? Like, did that play against John Foster? The same way Jerry Stovall didn't win the Heisman Trophy? Did that hit John Foster as well? By the way, the last song he played was called Tell the Angel That I Love Her. It was about Maggie Dunn and Caroline Gill, who were killed in a New Year's Eve crash back in 2022. Foster couldn't get through when performing it during his visit to his hometown last week. He was too overcome with emotion. People at the watch party say on the big stage, he hit it out of the park.
It was awesome. Very touching.
It was amazing. It was about our friends that passed away, and he deserves to win it.
But comes up one short. So we'll take a quick break, come back. Let's talk about those inmates that escaped next. We're going to be a couple seconds late. That's on me. Oh, wow. That's brutal. I was hacked via an AI generated video chat on Facebook Messenger. AI got my friend's face and everything. It has been a nightmare. I lost my Facebook account, had to delete the email associated with Facebook, and had to get a new phone number. That is brutal.
Yeah, man. Golly.
Galen says Southeastern softball coach won't be there much longer. He'll be hired by a bigger program. I mean, the way the internet's talking right now, he might be hired right here. 652 Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Okay, the big news heading into the weekend and over the weekend was about the escapees from the OPP, the Orleans Parish Prison. It's not a Naughty by Nature reference. The escapees from the Orleans Parish Prison, they busted out, heading into the weekend, and 3 have been captured since. There was a press conference held with the Orleans Parish Sheriff, Sheriff Huston, and we're going to hear audio throughout the show from a number of different outlets, but I want to start off with just like a minute or so, just a minute or two of just raw audio from the press conference. No gathered sound bites, just dive in on what she had to say, and we'll bust back in a minute, but let's just go back to the feed of the press conference itself. From was this on Friday? Was it? It was either Friday or Saturday, but here we go.
I'm confident with the team of officials
That's
behind me.
That's not it. All right, give us just a second. Like I said, there's audio coming in from all over the place, right? We got FBI here to hear from. We got the governor to hear from. Okay, here is just raw feed press conference.
We've been following the news coverage out here, and it is
right?
being made into a political issue. Political people are making this a political issue. I want to be really clear. This is a public safety issue, and we all need to continue to work together to solve it, to get these folks back in custody. And we are doing that. All of our energy at OPSO is going towards getting these folks back into custody and finding out exactly what happened. It's a fluid situation. When we're aiming to respond to all media inquiries as quickly as we can possibly do that, but I still have to investigate it, and the integrity of the investigation has to stand. We do acknowledge there is no way people can get out of this facility without there being some type of lapse in security. There's no way. It's almost impossible, not completely, but almost impossible for anybody to get out of this facility without help from the outside. We intend to find out exactly what happened. We know that, I want to say that we know that folks are normally locked down in this facility at 10:30 p.m., but these folks that were able to get out did so because of defective locks on the cells. I've talked about those locks since I got into office. I wrote a letter to the consent decree judge, to the city council, and everybody else who would listen. And every time I go to budget, I say the exact same thing. When you all covered our millage, I said the exact same thing. There are deficiencies in these facilities that cause public safety concerns. That's why the millage was so important. We'll get into that a little bit more as we move forward. I need to confirm that Kendall Miles is in custody. He is being rebooked for simple escape as well. OPSO deputies found him hiding beneath the car at the Hotel Monteleone parking garage, and he was transported to OJC by the Louisiana State Police. We also need to acknowledge that Keith Lewis, who was previously reported as an escaped detainee, was in a different cell. So he had been moved, but it had not been updated. So he is not on the run. There were 10, not 11, and he is in our facility and did not try to escape. The remaining individuals are being actively pursued, and our deputies, in collaboration with local and state law enforcement, are working tirelessly to locate and return them to custody.
Let's jump in here real quick because there's so much to unpack just from that. You just had a vote. You just had a millage pass that's going to give you more money. And it passed by 4 votes. There was a recount the week following the election, and it passed by 4 votes. Take you back to May 8th. Channel 4 out of New Orleans, WWL. A recount held on Thursday confirmed the passage of a narrowly approved millage to fund the Orleans Parish Jail. Originally thought to have passed by just 2 votes. When they recounted, they found 2 more. So it passed by 4 votes. So there's more money that's going to be on the way. But if I'm in Orleans Parish, I have to ask serious questions about where that money's going and how effectively it's going to be used. And the press conference goes on to just really hammer home the point that they needed more money. The press conference goes on to really just slam the idea that this only happened because they didn't have the funding years ago. And they tout things like the poor locks and everything. And she goes on to talk about the different responsibilities that a jail has and why it's so impossible to take care of the 1,400 inmates, to keep a count on 1,400 inmates. She talks about you have things like you have to make sure everybody's in their cell. And people have court dates we have to get them to. It makes it almost impossible if you got to give people standard operating procedure for a jail. I don't run a jail, but I would have to imagine that if you're running a jail, you have standard operating procedures that just cover the day-to-day. And a lot of the things that were listed in that press conference were day-to-day. She did mention two quick things. And I want to ask this when talking about that millage that passed by 4 votes. When talking about needing money and how everything is a problem of not having the right amount of dollars, they lost someone in the jail that they thought was out, and then they went back and found him inside the jail. Every other thing you're talking about here really sounds like an excuse instead of a reason, when initially you thought 11 people got out, and then you realized it was 10 because someone was missing within the jail. It's like, no, that guy didn't really escape. We just lost him. The second part was, and I do want to end this on a lighter note. It's very serious. These are very serious fellas. These are very bad dudes that got out. Okay. But I was almost relieved to hear that the guy that they found at the Monteleone was found hiding behind a parked car. Because the rumor that was going around on Saturday was that he was at the Carousel Bar, which is the world famous bar at the Monteleone Hotel. It's just, when that was floating around, I'm like, nothing about that makes sense at all. Why would you go to an overpriced bar in the corner when you should be getting the heck out of town? I was almost relieved to hear he was hiding behind a parked car, because that didn't make sense. Think about this. If you need to get out of town, where are you going? I'm going to a valet and I'm looking for keys. That's exactly where he was. So at least that made a little bit more sense on the back end rather than, going to have an old fashioned. All right, we're coming up on news, traffic, weather. Hour 2 is making your way next. We'll have Dr. Catherine O'Neill for Medical Monday. We'll have Patrick Robinson on from LABI right after we check in with ABC. I don't get it. .705 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Hour 2 coming your way right now. Brian here with you, John LaBeouf producing, getting you ready for a busy second hour as we dive in on Medical Monday. Medical Monday's pre-recorded this week. Got the chance to catch up with Dr. Catherine O'Neill. They're over at Our Lady of the Lake. They're working on an oral history of COVID. I mean, the pandemic that brought the world to a standstill. So I got to catch up with her on Friday, and it's just fascinating conversation, wonderful conversation. We tend to forget about all those frontline workers during the pandemic. We remember all the politics. We remember all the sound bites out of Washington, D.C. We remember all the sound bites out of the governor's office. But the people who were in it, I mean, the people who were, hip deep and running out of beds, it was a good reminder. It was good. It's good to remember history. So that's coming up about 9 minutes from right now. Also this hour, we're going to talk workers' comp with Patrick Robinson from LABI. But before we get to anything else, we got top stories and trending.
Number 5.
John Foster finishes second. Oh, what a run in American Idol. But the Addis native comes up one spot short. The 18-year-old Bruley High graduate and LSU student made his way all the way up until the top 2 last night before finishing as a runner-up.
Number 4.
Funeral services for former EBR Mayor President Kip Holden have been announced. They're scheduled for Thursday, May 22nd at 11 a.m. at the Greater King David Baptist Church on Blunt Road in Baton Rouge. Before the funeral, a visitation will be held from 8 a.m. to 10:45 at the church. The day before the funeral, I believe former Mayor President Kip Holden's body will be lying in state over at City Hall.
Number 3.
Police are looking for 37-year-old Casey Warren, a man who allegedly left his girlfriend to die after a domestic altercation yesterday morning. BRPD said officers were called to a home near the corner of Gerald and San Clemente Drives around 10 a.m., found 31-year-old Alicia Thomas. The situation is being investigated as a domestic homicide. Officials are actively looking for Warren.
Number 2.
Deputies responded to a fatal shooting at the Tanglewood Apartments early this morning, about 3:30 a.m. There were 2 people involved. One was taken to the hospital. The other died from their injuries. No other information is available right now.
Number 1.
Officials increased the reward for the capture of 7 inmates who escaped from a New Orleans jail by fleeing through a hole behind a toilet. FBI Special Agent Jonathan Trapp said at a news conference that 7 of the 10 men who originally escaped on Friday are still at large. The FBI is now offering $10,000 per inmate. That's double what they were offering. And not only that, you can add that to a $5,000 reward being offered by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and $2,000 coming in from Crime Stoppers. What's trending, John?
Well, the FBI has identified 25-year-old Guy Edward Bartkus of 29 Palms, California, as the person they say is responsible for the explosion of a Palm Springs fertility clinic.
Now, he's the only one who died in this act of terrorism, right?
He did, yep.
In fact, all the embryos that were in the clinic have proven to be safe. Now, the footage is wicked. Like, he blows this other side out of the building.
Yes, since the last hour.
You went back and watched it?
I've seen the pictures and things, but the video is just unbelievable.
Unbelievable that nothing inside the building of import was damaged.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Now, motive is what's
Insane.
next. And obviously, you can't pick his brain because he's dead.
Right.
But what possesses someone to do something like that?
That's a really good question. I mean, this is not something we see every day, and motive is definitely
no. But when people's wires get
Man.
crossed and they lose their minds entirely,
right.
like for example, the New Year's Eve or the New Year's morning,
Yes.
the terrorists in New Orleans. I mean, something drives a person to do that. What is it that makes them completely lose their minds?
There's no telling.
Yeah, I know. And will we? How do you make it better? Like, unless you can diagnose the problem, and we can speculate about the problem, but when you're talking about a dead suspect, you can't actively diagnose it unless they've left some kind of manifesto back on a computer somewhere.
That's another thing too, and I'm sure information will come out about that. Hopefully, we'll get more clarity on that.
Well, hope so.
In other news, former President Joe Biden has been diagnosed with prostate cancer. His office said on Sunday.
Very aggressive prostate cancer that has already gotten into his bones.
Yeah.
Man, you don't wish that on anyone, obviously. Can we drop politics for 5 minutes to just recognize the humanity and the human into this?
Right.
That being said, though, early diagnosis is the key to everything.
Yeah.
How quickly this spread. You're talking about nobody gets better medical care than a president,
That's
right?
right. Yeah.
So, man alive, that's very, very quick. And he's 82 years old, so treatment's gonna be tough for sure. I know they were talking about some hormonal treatment.
Yeah.
I don't know what goes into all that, so I'm not gonna pretend to know. But it's
For any 82-year-old.
I know.
It's just
I know.
devastating. And more lighthearted news here. The two Brits, Jace and Josh, have returned home to the UK, sorry. Before departing, they put out a message thanking America and singling out Louisiana for their hospitality.
Just we are built different here. It's
Yes.
nice when someone else acknowledges it. Other states will welcome visitors. We adopt them.
That's right.
It's a different level around here. It was really sweet when they apologized for mispronouncing everything.
Right.
It's-
right.
It got to the point where like, are you mispronouncing it just so we'll all comment the correct pronunciation? We'll
If
like
so,
phonetically spell
that's
out
the way.
pecan,
Yeah.
and just as opposed to like, your video's gonna get stickier. It's gonna get more clout.
It will.
The more likes and comments it gets. That being said, though, they were awesome. They got to come back.
Oh,
and not only they have to, you know what? We got Joe Kidder from Visit Baton Rouge coming on later this week.
Hey, there we go.
No, what we need to do is plan their return trip.
Okay.
We need to plan their return trip for the fall. Saturday night in Tiger Stadium got to happen.
Okay.
Can you imagine the reaction from these two?
Yeah, that would be amazing.
If eating a boudin burger is quote unquote mental, can you imagine a Saturday night in Death Valley?
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Let's go.
I would love to see it though.
Yeah.
Love to have those guys back. That would be absolutely incredible.
All right, 712 at Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Quick break, Medical Mondays next.
Yeah, man. That was so year before last. I have a friend, well, John, his name is from the UK, and I introduced him. We met up at a festival in Alabama a couple of years ago, and first time we actually met each other, but we've been talking online for a couple of years. I introduced him to Smash Burgers at this festival, and Italian Ice apparently was something that he never experienced before, and that's some good stuff, man. But that's one thing I understand. The food's a little bit more bland out there. So I imagine
Where?
Over in England.
Oh God, yeah.
So I assume that the flavors down here that they experienced was just something like, completely phenomenal to them, I'm sure.
It's time for your weekly checkup. This is Medical Monday, presented by Our Lady of the Lake Health.
Yes, it is time for Medical Monday. And can you believe it's been 5 years? 5 years since everybody was on lockdown. 5 years since the pandemic that really took over the world. And, well, today we're welcoming back to the show Dr. Catherine O'Neill for what Our Lady of the Lake is putting together a bit of an oral history project titled Under Pressure, a Louisiana Hospital's COVID-19 Experience. Dr. O'Neill, welcome back. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you, Brian?
I am doing very well as well. Let's dive in. The Under Pressure, a Louisiana Hospital's COVID-19 Experience. What is the project about?
The project is a series of videoed interviews and oral histories captured by the LSU Oral History Museum. So done in our hospital, but will live in that museum. And honestly, it really is about our team's resilience. It's about their stories during the pandemic. You just mentioned the lockdown. So many personal experiences that our team members experienced during that time and that we wanted to capture. I'll tell you, it came about because I was listening to a story that somebody was telling one evening, and I thought, oh my goodness, I never heard that story. I can't believe it because it made us all chuckle so much. And I thought, we're going to forget. We're going to forget about all these things we went through and that we did together as healthcare workers. And somebody's going to come around 20 years from now and try to get them from us, and we won't have the memories anymore. And so we started to talk to LSU. We have a unique relationship with the undergraduate campus, in which we partner on lots of different things. And they just have this amazing oral history museum, and they were able to help us to capture our team's memories.
There were so many, different phases along the way as well. So capturing this oral history, not just from a memory perspective, but from a learning perspective as well. That's
right.
It's just, we all live this in real time. So in this March, it did mark the 5-year anniversary of the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. So why at 5 years? Is it a matter of any further we start to lose gaps?
Yes. If you read John Barry's book on the Great Influenza, he actually talks about how, because there was such a long gap between that pandemic and his research, that people didn't remember exactly what happened. And then also, just like you said, it occurred over a 2.5-year period. And so there's a lot of jumbled memories. I'm not quite sure. And you hear that in our team. What month was that? Was that the first wave or the second wave? And if we waited too long, we were afraid we would lose many, many memories and a lot of detail. And so the 5-year anniversary gave us a stopping point that we said, we have to do this by then. It's important and we need to get it done. And it gave us a good goal.
You were quite visible throughout. You're a very visible figure during the pandemic, both locally and nationwide as well, especially when it came time to play football. Why did you personally want to participate in this project, and what do you hope to accomplish through it?
I would have preferred not to participate in this project. I also had to dig deep to say, do I want to talk about this again? I wanted to hear our team members because there were so many stories I didn't hear, but I felt like I had enough to say already about the pandemic. But I wanted to make sure this project really encompassed the personal part of the pandemic. You heard a lot from me in the news about the pandemic itself. You heard a lot about what the hospital was going through. But when we talk about what our team members did to just see their kids at night and how they went back day after day to patients who couldn't talk to their families and became their family for them, I think those are beautiful stories we couldn't tell on the news at the time, and I didn't have enough time to really show the power of what healthcare workers do for patients all over the world. And so this particular project really highlights the mission of healthcare. In our mission statement, we talk about reverence and love for all life. And I think that's a very broad mission for most healthcare workers. And you see that come out in this project, something that we never really got to talk about in the news.
Which is awesome, because the news got too wrapped up in the politics and the personal stories, the anecdotes, the humanity of the whole thing really fell to the wayside pretty quickly.
Right, exactly. And we didn't want to hash through all those things. We wanted to talk about how do people who have to do hard things sustain their work? How do people who come in day out and say, I'm going to be here for someone else? How did they fill their cup back up? What motivated them? So this story is really about capturing the sustainability of a frontline worker, and how our community wrapped around them. They told so many wonderful stories. Again, things that you kind of forgot about, like all of the gifts and all of the food people prepared, the masks people made. It made our team feel like the community had their back. Also something we didn't talk about enough. And so I'm so glad that they were able to share all of those experiences and how they felt about them.
We're talking with Dr. Catherine O'Neill about Under Pressure, a Louisiana hospital's COVID-19 experience, the oral history being put together by Our Lady of the Lake. Dr. O'Neill, the series contains 13 total interviews with more than 30 participants. What stood out to you the most from the other interviews that you were not a part of?
I was really proud of our team's honesty. So, going back through that 2.5 years, there were a lot of times in which we all felt doubtful of, can we do this? What are we doing? Is this the right thing to do? And they didn't hold anything back. If you go and take a listen to what they're talking about, they specifically expressed, I wasn't sure. And some of them said, I'm still not sure. And I wanted them to speak their mind. I think that everybody assumes that if you were in healthcare or, if you were a nurse and taking care of patients, that you must feel this way. And it really shows that every healthcare worker is human and works through their own ways to process these types of events. And you heard their honesty. I was really proud of that.
Which is awesome. That's so awesome. Because, there was a lot of, and looking back, there was a lot of go along to get along. And the fact that we were all working through it in real time meant that sometimes mistakes were going to be made. But if we were making them as a team, you knew the overall progress would be in the right direction.
100%. When you work as a team, you sit down as a team and you say, we're going to do this today. And we talked a lot about that. You heard our team talk about that in those first several weeks. It was, today we'll do this, and tomorrow we'll see if that's still the right plan.
Right.
And now, in looking back, sometimes it feels like it was all rote, and that we had a plan. And that's what I really want to make sure, that if anybody ever goes back and says, how did this happen? Or how did they do this? If somebody has to tackle this again in 30 years, they need to understand that there's no recipe book, that you work as a team and you pivot every day.
There was a time where we had one-way signs in the aisles of grocery stores. So
Exactly. It's so crazy. All these things we did, it was so crazy. Yes.
Are there things that you had forgotten about, like the one-way signs in the grocery store? Are there things you've forgotten about, or new things that you've learned along the way by participating in this project and listening to some of the other folks?
Yes, things happened so fast, especially in the beginning. And I knew that we had team members who suffered great losses personally, and with their patients. And I heard those stories, and we were all together in it. But man, it was, every day was just so full of information that 5 years later, hearing the timeline of their loss and how they came back to work and chose to work with COVID patients again to make sure they were giving back, I had forgotten how closely related those things were. So our nursing interview was so eye-opening for me. I appreciate them so much, but hearing what they went through was, I just wanted to give them a hug and tell them how much I appreciate them, and so does the hospital, so does the community. They're some of the most resilient people I've ever met. And so, yeah, it was just, it was eye-opening to hear it again, the way they told their stories.
Was there, how do I put this? The ripping off of the scab there, was there catharsis? What was emotionally, how'd the ride go?
It was emotional. It was, I had several people come to me after they gave their interviews, because I didn't listen to them all at first. I did my own and participated in one, but this went over weeks. And I had several team members say, gosh, Dr. O'Neill, thanks for having me do that. That was hard. And then we had one person who was interviewing another person who came to me and said, I think you may need to contact your employee assistance program for this provider. And I said, okay, absolutely. It was raw in a lot of ways and hard. And that's why a lot of us will package those things up, put them on a shelf, and we may not talk about them again. But that doesn't do the rest of our team, who have to go through hard things every day, that doesn't do them justice, because I think we owe it to the next generation to say, sometimes we do really hard things. It's really hard on us, and we don't always take it well. And so I'm so proud of everybody who put their emotions into it. It was not always easy. And then there are glorious things like the vet school interview. I don't know how they knew to be prepared for the city of Baton Rouge, but by the time we reached out to them, they were ready to test our patients. And so when you hear their story of how they knew to be prepared, I'm sort of amazed. They're so bright and wonderful, and they did something for this community that I don't think that story's been told well enough. So really, really happy to have them be able to participate.
Got just a couple minutes left with Dr. Catherine O'Neill from Our Lady of the Lake, looking back on the oral history of COVID-19, or the COVID-19 experience through OLOL's eyes. Okay, you kind of answered this with the last question, but I'm going to ask it in a little bit different way. What are you hoping that someone takes away from listening to these interviews?
I hope that it opens the listeners' eyes to the work of the pandemic through the healthcare worker, their compassion, the resilience, the humility that they need to practice their trade. I just hope that they see the pandemic through a little bit of a different lens than most of the general population does. I think it will make them very proud of the community that we live in today.
And before we get you out of here, where can listeners go to learn more and listen to the interviews and partake in this experience themselves?
Oh, I sure hope they do. You can go to ololrmc.com, Stories of Strength. So that Stories of Strength landing page will get you all the interviews, and listen to them like a podcast if you want. They're great. They're great. Really proud of them.
ololrmc.com/stories of strength is the website. The oral history is called Under Pressure, a Louisiana hospital's COVID-19 experience. She's Dr. Catherine O'Neill. We always appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Have a great week.
We're 726 to Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Thanks again to Dr. Catherine O'Neill for a couple minutes. Obviously, you don't just do a segment like that and not walk down the path yourself, walking through those memories of the pandemic and the way it changed everything for a short time, and then on the way back out of it. And I wonder how many of us 5 years removed now do remember like that level of uncertainty. That level, and I brought it up with, and I was being funny, but like I brought it up with Dr. O'Neill, say, there was a time where we all had to go one way in the grocery store aisles. Like there was a lot that we learned along the way, which meant that there was a lot that we were doing wrong along the way as well. But there was also that a number of people had more of a team mentality, kind of a go along to get along, where we said, some of this sounds stupid, but we're going to do it for now anyway, knowing that there was going to be a conclusion to the stupidity, knowing that we would sift our way through what was right and what was wrong and get to what was right. Let's share a little bit, if we could, on Facebook Live. Looking back 5 years later, and I can't emphasize this enough, I do not want political posts here. Please don't do it with that. But looking back 5 years later, what were some of your memories of COVID-19 that just really, really stood out? Let's talk over on Facebook Live, which we are live on Facebook every single morning. over on YouTube Live as well. And it's all courtesy of the folks over at Lake Urgent Care. Let's get your feedback over there. Sound off for us, if you will, about some of the individual memories of maybe one of those, obscure things. Things that stood out for me were as we were making our way back into it. Like, one of the dumbest things we did was told people as restaurants were reopening at 50% capacity. And we told people you had to wear a mask to get to the table. And then once you got to the table, you could take off your mask to eat. And you had to put the mask back on to get from your table back out the door. I think in hindsight, we all look back on that and be like, yeah, that's pretty dumb. What are a few of yours? We're live on Facebook, courtesy of Lake Urgent Care. Oh, I can't wait. They're going to start rolling in. I cannot wait. All right, hey, we got news coming up in just a minute. Got to remind you about the folks over at Mathern's, where you don't have to walk one way up and down the aisles at Mathern's. All those to get in on the Nicholson Drive location, the one over there on campus, you do, once you walk through the front door, you're going to make a right to go around a huge display to get through over there at the Mathern's on campus right there. But once you get into the individual aisles, it's either way. You travel in both directions, unlike during COVID. Mathern's has got you covered downtown. They've got you covered in the Nicholson Gateway Shopping Center, and they've also got you covered by Kenilworth. Highland Road, just west of Kenilworth. Remember the old school Kenilworth supermarket? Well, that same family is back. The family you missed, the prices you missed are here at Mathern's. Mathern's at Kenilworth. And if you live in the area, go ahead and download the app. Download the Mathern's Rewards app. Start earning cash towards more groceries every time you shop. I stopped in at Mathern's on Saturday. I was producing LSU baseball on Saturday. Stopped in over there. Oh, man, it was bumping on Saturday between the regional going on at Tiger Park and graduation going on campus. You had all kinds of folks up and down Mathern's, and stopped in, grabbed myself some lunch, scanned the little app. That's going to go towards more groceries at Mathern's. Download the app today. All right, news, traffic, weather. Patrick Robinson from Lobby is next. Yes! Renee, people were wearing the same cloth mask for weeks without washing it. Byron says, I had to order personal protective equipment from my Chinese sister-in-law for my staff. We need to make more things here. You'd think you could 3D print all that by now and just make it, somewhere here. I made hundreds of masks. Awesome. I vividly remember that Friday, March the 13th, shopping in Target and everyone's phone notifications dinging with the news of upcoming school closures and the size that followed. Totally remember that, Katie. Watching people wipe the money. Yes! People driving alone in their cars with their masks on.
That one always got me too.
No, hang on. Let me defend that one.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. Here's my defense. Okay. I actually called someone out for doing that. Okay.
Yeah.
Pulled up to a red light. Woman's in her car by herself wearing her mask. I rolled down my window and I said, "Do you feel the need you're by yourself? Why wear it?" I'm on my way to pick up my mother-in-law.
Oh, you see?
See, she didn't want her COVIDs in the car. And I was like, that's legit. That's
and
fair.
I don't know if anyone's really thinking about that, right?
No.
That's why we're all like, what are you doing?
So, yeah.
Okay.
I was like, I'm still not on board, but at least I understand.
Yeah.
I ride with the windows down. I mean, you're going to open and close the doors anyway, right?
Right. Studio. This is actually John, his producer. Yeah, doing well, sir. Yeah, looking to have you up here just a few minutes. All right. Thank you.
Byron says, I had to send people into COVID units. Wasn't a fun time for me. Look, I don't want to ever get too far away from the fact that I'm well convinced that 15, 20 years from now, we're going to be told that COVID was nothing. That it was nothing.
It's coming out now that it was like.
Yeah, but
yeah, you're right. It'll be even.
Yeah. It was a once in a century minimum, once a century pandemic. Not since Spanish flu.
Yeah.
But I have no doubt that we will rewrite history.
Yeah. What a time, man. What a time it was to be alive. Oh, yeah. Wiping down Amazon packages before bringing them in the house.
Big time.
All that stuff, man. Disinfectant spray on, like, everything. Grocery orders that came in, contactless deliveries.
Yep.
Yep, groceries. All that stuff, man.
My absolute favorite, though, and like getting away from, all right, I don't want to get like too sentimental, but I really, really, really got to reconnect with my wife.
Yeah.
Now we developed a drinking problem as a result of it, but so we were doing 2 shows a day. Me and Condon were doing 2 shows a day.
Yeah.
Okay, we do a morning show, then we do a midday show,
Okay.
and then go home. And Chrissy and I would this is so like simple. We would just sit on our front porch and drink ranch waters. And here I was thinking I invented the ranch water because we sit on our front porch, drink ranch waters, and we had these friends who had retired to the French Quarter, the Guidries. The Guidries would do trivia on Facebook Live every day.
Yeah.
So we'd break out the iPad, so we had a bigger screen. And the Guidries, they're retired. They're this fun old couple there who every couple aspires to be, right? Just together.
Yeah.
And we watched them, and they do trivia, and like they'd ask a question, and then they'd give us some time to let people answer, and you'd have a ton of wrong answers and a bunch of people having fun, and it was like we were able to remotely have a good time with this.
Sure.
Did not realize that drinking every single day would lead to badness, but
Yeah, but we all kind of improvised during those times, and that was another thing that was cool because I was working long hours as well. So being home with the wife and kids was like,
yeah,
this is cool. Like, another thing I was doing on social media because we would do. I wasn't home at the time, and so every month we would do these open mic events. Well, then we started doing digital open mic events where like just people from around wherever,
okay,
kind of come on and have like 5 minutes to present something like a song, a poem, something like that, just to get people just out of the funk and something to look forward to. That was really cool. That was another thing that was really cool. So like a digital open mic, stuff like that,
which was awesome, but it was also short lived. Like the number of musicians who started doing Facebook Lives, hoping to raise money to make up the money they weren't making at gigs and whatnot.
Right.
And then like the first one would go over like gangbusters, and then they're like, eventually, All right, time to get a look at your forecast. Here's WBRZ meteorologist Emma Kate Cowan. Renee, the toilet paper shortage.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, man. Which I never really understood. I mean, it wasn't. It's just paper towels and toilet paper.
Byron says many people don't understand that this was a completely new type of virus. Our bodies didn't have immunological ability to fight it like it does with cold and flu viruses. I had a 30-year-old, very healthy employee who almost died from it. I got to find the audio. Ted James told his story on this show about how he almost died. And he completely having to pee saved his life.
Really?
Oh, it's an amazing story. I'll tell it during the next break. .738 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Every Monday we get the chance to get caught up with the folks over at the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry, and oh man, this week this is awesome. We get to check in with Patrick Robinson to talk about workers' comp, the fee schedule, all the news that's going on out there. what's legit, what's needed, why is it needed? Patrick, welcome back. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Brian. How you doing? I don't usually get to talk to you till October.
I know, which I'm on for that, right?
You are. We're looking forward to it for our
Same.
first week of October.
All right. Yes. Good. We'll work out the logistics very soon. In the meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about what's going on right now, why this is needed, why it's difficult. Give me all the nuts and bolts.
Oh, I'll tell you, of course, there's fiscal session in terms of workers' comp. The lowdown on workers' comp is we pay through Louisiana employers something on the order of $1 billion a year in premium. If you cut that back to just average, because our premiums are the 5th highest in the country, if you cut that back to average, that's an injection of $300 to $400 million back into the business community that can be used for wages, growth, lower prices, all those good things. So that's sort of the nuts and bolts of the problem. For this session where we are, we really focused on a niche problem, or I say a niche problem, a big problem, but kind of a limited issue, and that's the workers' comp medical fee schedule. Problem with that, Brian, is that workers' comp, like most insurance, there are set fees for how much doctors are reimbursed based on the services they do. And in workers' comp, that fee schedule hadn't been updated in about 30 years. So you've got old fees that need to be increased. You've got some fees that are just confusing and cause litigation. Lots and lots of problems. So that was sort of the mission that we took on this year, to look at that and update it. And I have to give compliments to the Workforce Commission, to Brian Blackwood, who's the Assistant Secretary for Workers' Comp, and to Susie Showen, the Secretary over at LWC. They really took the lead on trying to get a group together and come up with some solutions. And we did that, and we met for 6 or 7 months prior to the session and came up with a bill that Senator Seabaugh offered as Senate Bill 213 to update the workers' comp fee schedule. The interesting thing about workers' compensation is that for an area that is not at the forefront of everybody's mind, it has a very vocal stakeholder group. And when that bill came out, there were lots of concerns expressed, some more loudly than others, by various stakeholders in the system, and that bill ultimately was not heard. And it is, I don't know that I would say that it is dead for the session, but it is certainly quieted down and is sickly. So that's where we stand on that bill. But the issue is going to move forward, and I think the discussions will move forward to try to fix that fee schedule problem.
So the suggestions within this within Senator Seabaugh's bill would kick things off with a new fee schedule for 2027. Does that mean we're kind of stuck where we're at until at least then? And I'm guessing if the bill's being pushed off, so will the implementation.
I think you're correct on that, Brian. And there is another bill. Michael Echols, who has always been very interested in this issue and is probably, if not the most knowledgeable, among the most knowledgeable legislators on the fee schedule, has another bill that has passed through the House. But I don't know that it doesn't run into the same problems that Senator Seabaugh's bill did. What that leaves us with is a 30-year-old fee schedule that has a lot of uncertain reimbursement methods, a lot that are too low. For instance, in many cases, doctors need to be their reimbursement needs to be increased. Hospital inpatient stays need to be increased. The problem with all of that is that within our fee schedule, we have a reimbursement for outpatient care, outpatient surgeries, ambulatory surgery centers, all those things. That is very unclear. It's characterized as a percent of billed charges reimbursement, so that whatever the bill is, the reimbursement is X percent of that. And the problem when you're talking that kind of vague language is that charges can be anything. So the result is that you get a lot of unclear bills, a lot of disputes, and a lot of litigation. And anytime you're talking about litigation, just like in the commercial auto insurance field or the personal auto field, you're talking about delays and increased costs and lots of problems that don't benefit the system.
Mm-hmm. We're talking with Patrick Robinson from LABI about workers' comp and looking for a fix within the legislature. Okay, so if Senator Seabaugh's bill likely not going to be heard, Representative Echols' bill is in front of the exact same committee. Are we able to, at the very least, track where the votes were on Echols' bill on the House side to see what some of the potential problems were? Like, if you've got someone with a nay vote, why did they vote nay?
Well, what you wind up with, and the concern from the healthcare provider community on this is there are discussions about tying in reimbursement to Medicare, and the doctors are concerned about that because Medicare has more budget concerns and may go up or down based on budgetary reasons as opposed to real legitimate economics in the medical community. So there's legitimate concerns on that. The response to that is there are 40 plus states that do this much better than we do, and there are any number of ways to calculate what reimbursement is going to be. From my perspective, having been engaged in this discussion for the better part of a quarter century, we're really just looking for a number. The problem is not high-low. The problem is the uncertainty. And when you're not sure how much you should be reimbursed or how much you should reimburse somebody else, that's just a recipe for disaster and more litigation and more delays. So we can track how Representative Echols' bill came out of the House, and it came out very similar to how his bill came out last year. It's a very similar bill. It's a little more general than Senator Seaball's. Gives the workers' comp agency probably more latitude in looking at other states, looking at other systems, coming up with a method to calculate reimbursement. But again, we have typically run into more headwinds when we've gotten over on the Senate side than we have in the House side.
I hesitate to ask this question, but when it comes to payouts and payments and the like, and I'm going to make the comparison to car insurance. How much is that jackpot mentality playing on the workers' comp side?
Yeah, it's exactly the same circumstance, Brian. It's the same problems that we have. And of course, auto insurance, both personal and commercial, homeowners insurance, those get more of the spotlight than workers' comp. But the fact is, workers' comp is exactly in that same circumstance. We just pay a lot more in terms of premiums. And in terms of business climate, that's just one more reason for businesses to look at Louisiana and say, I don't think I'm going to go there. I think I'm going to go to Mississippi or Texas or Arkansas because premiums are all lower in those states. Is there a jackpot mentality? Less so perhaps than in tort, because in tort you obviously have the pain and suffering, general damages type of recovery that can be more significant. But workers' comp certainly has that issue where the longer you stay out of work, the longer you draw benefits. There are employees that maybe don't want to risk going back to work because they're not sure they can, and they do want to continue drawing workers' comp. There are doctors and lawyers that are on that fringe, 5% that do see loopholes in the system and are using that to their advantage. So certainly there are people who are taking advantage of problems in our comp system.
With 40 plus other states that do this right, why is it so hard to look to our neighbors and copy and paste?
I've been asking that question for about 15 years, Brian. I do think there's always that perspective in Louisiana, and we are unique. We are different than a lot of places, and I think that's why so many of us love it here. But we don't have to be unique in everything. There are ways to do this, and the purpose of regulators is that if you put in a system and it's off and it does not provide enough compensation for providers, you increase it. If it provides too much, you decrease it. That's what regulators do. So why we have been unable to do that for so many years is beyond me, but I will say we will continue to try to come up with a solution on that.
What do we do in the meanwhile?
Well, we keep working with the system that we got. I think we do have a law in place. I think the agency is going to try to work within the confines of current law to come up with a fee schedule that's better, that fills some of the holes that we have that have been abused by a segment of the stakeholder community, and they're going to try to fix that. And I got to compliment those guys because they have really stepped up and tried to take the lead on this. And I'm hopeful that they can come up with something that may not be perfect, but certainly will be better than what we have.
Got about 2 minutes left with Patrick Robinson from the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry. Do we have a numbers impact on, like, I know when businesses are looking at relocating, there's so many different factors that go into this, but is there any way to narrow it down to show how much of a determining factor this is when businesses look at, like, the potential liability to move here?
Yeah, I don't know that there are specific numbers out there. I would defer to some of the economics folks on that, Brian. I will tell you that having spent some time with some companies based in other states traveling around and comparing workers' comp metrics. There are many businesses who say, there's this, that, and the other thing, and the other thing being the workers' comp system in Louisiana is sketchy and doesn't work like other systems do, and we don't want to locate there in a state that we don't think is going to give us a fair shake. So I think it is certainly a factor. It is just it's one of those things you can throw on top of a pile of things that I think current government, the current legislature is trying to address and trying to fix, and workers' comp is one of those things.
I'm asking you the same thing about workers' comp that I ask about auto insurance. Is that changing the law is one thing, changing the mentality behind, changing the jackpot mentality is a complete different thing. How would we approach that? I mean, is it just a public awareness campaign, or I don't know? Public shaming doesn't seem to be in the cards, but
yeah, and I don't know that you ever get too far with public shaming. It is. I think you're right.
I was kidding about that, Patrick.
No. But I understand what you're saying. But it's a culture issue, and I think we do need to educate people that the reason for workers' comp is not to stay on workers' comp indefinitely. The reason for workers' comp is to provide you some support while you are recovering, while you're getting good medical treatment, while you are looking to either return to the job you had or find another opportunity that will be as good or better for you that you can go back to work doing.
He is Patrick Robinson from LABI. We always appreciate the time, sir. Talk to you soon.
All right, Brian, I got a COVID story for you next time we talk.
You know what? Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
All right.
Bye. Here's Your Money Now on Talk 107.3 FM. Man, I looked at the clock. I wanted him to get that in. Okay, so we're going to go with the cuts that I emailed you for this one. Back to the inmates. I don't know how I ever survived before bringing mouthwash in here. Getting rid of that coffee taste every day.
Yeah, that's
starting the show over.
Yep. It's the same thing, man. That's why I started bringing like mints and stuff. It's like just a better.
Walgreens had the Walgreens brand 2-for-1 the other day. So.
Oh yeah, man.
One for here, one for the car.
Heck yeah.
It's a little bit bigger, so I gotta leave it on its side.
And then they make those little travel size ones. Those little.
That's what I have with the Listerine.
Oh yeah, that's small. Yeah.
Oh. I read so much more than I needed to read on that one. No, I read so much to make sure. I don't know why, like, workers' comp fascinates me. I don't know why.
Really?
We're going to do a whole show on it in October. What he was talking about with their conference.
Yeah.
We're taking the show out there, and it's going to take over the entire show one day. We did it last year, and I got way more positive feedback than I would have ever expected.
So we're just clarifying, demystifying some of what workman comp is and what it was meant to be.
How it affects you, how it affects your paycheck, how it affects everyone's paycheck.
Yeah.
People breaking the law. I can no longer hear Two Shorts blow the whistle. Have you ever seen The uncle step.
No.
Oh shit! Here it is.
Uncle step. All right. Okay. Okay.
It's this one. They're all doing.
And so now
one
every time
step,
you hear that, yeah.
And this is what I see. And it's every original Kings of Comedy suit you're ever gonna think of. They got a guy wearing all orange at one point.
Oh my god!
But it's this
yeah,
one,
all orange.
They're all in a line. They're doing like this one step the whole way through.
Oh,
I
own
did not
step.
hear this song.
I love it.
You should see some of the suits in this thing. And look,
I'm gonna look it up on my own now.
Yeah, it's the.
Own step. Oh man. So
you just type Uncle Step into YouTube and you'll get it.
Dude.
So somebody posted. I gotta chill the mic for a sec. $7:55 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Coming up next hour, we dive into the legislative session. We'll talk with Moon Griffon at 8:15. We will talk with State Representative Mark Wright at 8:35. Right now, though, we go. Excuse me. Right now, though, we go back to the top story of the day, and that is that law enforcement officials are confident they'll arrest the 7 remaining inmate escapees who got out of the Orleans Parish Jail early Friday morning. 3 of those inmates the 10 got out. They thought 11, but you heard we played you the audio from Orleans Parish Sheriff Hudson in the last hour. One of them was just missing within the jail. They need more resources to make sure they can, have active or accurate. They need more resources to make sure that all the locks work. Make sure that nobody's cutting through the sheetrock behind a turlet. They need more money for all that. But keep it a proper head count. That right there was a problem as well for at least one of them. That being said, there was a press conference late yesterday afternoon where Louisiana State Police Superintendent Colonel Robert Hodges said that talked about the level of confidence in the intelligence that they have to go out and find these guys.
We're confident this time that we have actionable intelligence on all 7 of those fugitives. And we hope in the coming days, if not the coming hours, that we have them all apprehended.
Let's keep it with Hodges for one more real quick. As it's not just the guys who got out. Someone had A, helped them get out, and B, help them stay out. And how that plays into this, the investigation will really ramp up on how they got out of the jail in the first place. You don't just cut a hole behind a toilet and get out. There's a lot more to it than that. You gotta many, many steps to get you. This isn't the Shawshank Redemption. You don't crawl through the sewer. Like these guys literally ran out a door. So they needed help to bust out of prison. They need help to make sure they remain, make sure they're avoiding people or avoiding law enforcement so they don't get recaught. Colonel Hodges talked about those who might be helping them. You need to beware as well.
If you are helping and assisting these fugitives, allowing them to remain uncaptured and not brought to justice, there will be consequences, and there may be charges for you.
One of the parts we haven't talked about yet on this is a national story. I grabbed both of those sound bites from ABC News. I hate that this is a national story. In fact, Josh and Chase, the two Brits, when they got into New Orleans, they posted a video. This happened the same time that the two Brits were wrapping up the Louisiana tour. They got into New Orleans, and these dudes were busted out of jail. And the two British guys posted up a video asking, are we safe? Should we lock ourselves in our hotel rooms? Is this normal? Like, are we safe to go out in New Orleans with this going on? This does affect the largest tourism city in the state, one of the largest tourism cities in the country. That plays. I mean, one of the escaped inmates was caught at one of the most popular hotels in the French Quarter. That plays. Meanwhile, Governor Jeff Landry has dumped a ton of resources into Troop NOLA. We've been seeing results. Numbers have been looking better. And then you get into whether or not you are safe versus whether you're feeling safe. Landry, I mean, he was none too happy about this.
This massive jailbreak, which my statistics tell me could be the largest jailbreak in the history of the state, should never have happened.
No, it should not have happened. That part's a no-brainer. Unpacking the rest of this is going to take a while. Catching these guys needs to be mission number one, though. All right, it's 8 o'clock. Talk 107.3 FM. Hour 3 is next. Probably going to run into now, though, is all the infighting that's going to go on. The infighting is going to hinder the investigation. And the first press conference was all about how we needed these resources all along. This was why we went to the polls to vote for these resources. And I get all that. Like, I understand that. But it detracts from the fact that these guys had to have help either from prison employees or people in the surrounding community or both in order to get done what they got done. This wasn't just a matter of resources. This wasn't a matter of a faulty lock. 900 security cameras. This wasn't a matter of any of that. It wasn't about funding. They had help. Kimberly Powers says that guy that hopped on his IG right after they busted out and said, "I'm out," was the example of the average OPP inmate intelligence. These guys had lots of help. Yeah, they did. Where's the angry emoji? There it is. I'm not angry at you, Kimberly. Angry at the fact that you're absolutely right. Pretty damn close. The side by side makes it so much worse. .806 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Hour 3 of Mornings with Brian Haldane coming your way right now. Brian here with you. John LaBeouf producing. We're looking at a busy hour this hour as we're going to pivot over to the legislative session. I'll start you off at 77 degrees in downtown Baton Rouge. We'll have Moon Griffon coming your way 10 minutes from right now. State Representative Mark Wright out of Covington coming up at 8:35. Man, before we dive into this day in history, just a quick shout out to everybody who's responded over on the Facebook Live. Back in our Medical Monday segment last hour, they were, Dr. Catherine O'Neill was talking about an oral history of COVID. And I was just asking for, some of your stories. Patrick Robinson from LABI had one to share. He saved it till the very end. We got caught up by the Your Money Now break. So we got to get him back on to share that story at some point. But a number of folks posting up over on Facebook Live, sharing their COVID stories. They've been fantastic, to be sure. John, I got a couple for you. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
So I didn't want I didn't want anything political. Not lose your politics. Tell me about your story. Troy says, who wiped down their Amazon packages before bringing them in the house? This guy.
Yeah.
You wiped down your Amazon packages?
I did.
Yeah. Yep. People driving alone in their cars with their mask on. I actually rebutted that. I had someone explain to me why they drove alone in their car with their mask on. They said they were on their way to pick up their mother-in-law. And I'm like, okay. We're all scared. It'd be scared. That's fine. This was one of my favorites, came from Debbie. Watching people wipe the money we gave them through the drive-thru.
Yeah.
I mean,
that happened.
It did.
Yes, indeed.
It did. So good. Boy, Katie put us right back in the heart of it. I vividly remember that Friday, March 13th, shopping in Target and everyone's phone notifications dinging with the news of upcoming school closures and the sighs that followed. I like it. Ooh, you remember that specific of a memory. Had plenty more on there. It was good stuff. In fact, keep them coming. If you got more, let us know over on Facebook Live, presented by Lake Urgent Care. We're here for it. We're here for all the stories. Right now, we're here for this day in history. And my guy Danny over at 5 Star Printing and Signs, 271-4096, 271-4096. Crushing it over there. I mean, so right off Range Avenue, right next to Big Mike's. He's got that visible footprint in Denham Springs.
Yes,
but don't think he's just a Denham Springs company. Give him a call at 271-4096. You won't believe how affordable his pricing is. You won't believe the quality of how good his work is as well. And putting your logo on merch. It's where it's at these days. Check that out at printshop5.com. All right, what happened?
Indeed. All right, let's see. Starting off here in 1896, where the first automobile made by Carl Benz arrives in the Netherlands.
No way.
So yeah,
the first ever Mercedes Benz.
Yeah.
Or was he teamed up with Mercedes yet?
Not
or was
yet.
It just, okay.
Not yet. I think I want to say it might have been last week or week before last. I think we kind of touched on that.
Yeah,
it was. We just kind of breezed through it.
Yeah,
but yeah,
the two teamed up together.
Yeah,
to make Mercedes Benz, and not long after that, that's when my car came off the line.
Yeah.
It was like right after Mr. Mercedes and Mr. Benz got together.
Yeah,
that's where my car came out.
Okay,
well, I could have Vex European, but we'll tell you about them later.
Hey, there we go. Hey, 1962, Marilyn Monroe sings "Happy Birthday, Mr. President" to JFK before 15,000 attendees. So that happened.
Okay.
That was I never really, that was a part of like Wayne's World. So I never actually saw the actual footage, but I remember, it being mocked in Wayne's World. So yeah.
Interesting.
Thought that was funny. 94, final episode of American TV drama LA Law after an 8-year run. Are you familiar with the show?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're not?
No, I mean it was 94, Brian. I was a child. So I was watching Ninja Turtles. Well, not much has changed.
I was wrapping up my junior year of high school.
Mm.
But yeah, Ellie Law starred Corbin Burnson.
Yeah, okay.
Who was also Roger Dorn on Major League. Actually, Corbin Burnson's been on this show before. I forget why, but he's
why
been
not?
on the show before.
That's the thing.
I know.
Why not?
Well,
right?
when those interviews come across, I grab whoever I can.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Speaking of movies, television, things like that, in 2007, the Coen brothers film No Country for Old Men was released. Really enjoyed that movie. One of my favorites, for sure. Let's see, 2019. Check this out. U.S. billionaire Robert F. Smith announces he will pay off college loans of nearly 400 students of the graduating class of Morehouse College in Atlanta. So
good on him.
Man, that's incredible. Let's see.
There should be more of that.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I'm not. This is not going to go. I'm not going down a rant of forgive all the student loan debt. But like people who are graduates of a university who want to dive back in and make sure that their fellow alumni can start with a clean slate. Not bad.
No.
Hey, did you say in this day in 1884 what happened?
No. What do we have?
The Ringling Brothers Circus was formed.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah,
that's good stuff.
Yep,
love it. Hey, 2022 environmental pollution caused by obesogen toxin is having a significant effect on the obesity crisis and can be passed down through the generations, according to major new study. That's why I'm big, Brian.
What?
Because of obesogen toxins?
I don't even know what that is.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
It's the first I've ever heard of this.
Yeah.
Apparently in 2022. Yeah. So that's what I'm blaming my obesity.
Yay, we're all off the hook.
That's it. Hey, speaking of Mercedes, in that same year, 2022, Mercedes confirms the sale of the world's most expensive car, a 1955 Mercedes-Benz, selling for $142 million. Like,
why?
Man, I guess Robert F. Smith, that billionaire we just mentioned, I guess, maybe that's more in his price range, but I don't know about this.
Guess.
Come on.
Man.
It's insane.
Yep.
Hey, it's been 1 year since Diddy issues an apology after a video is released by CNN of him assaulting his ex-girlfriend.
What?
In 2016, after previously denying it happened.
Which basically opened up the floodgates for all the things to follow.
Yes. Yes, it
Wow,
did.
Okay.
Oof. Well, moving on to birthdays.
Yep.
All right, I have the top of this list. Malcolm X here.
Yep.
Let's see who else. Nicole Simpson as well.
Okay.
Nicole Brown Simpson today. Let's see. Anybody else on your end?
I got British singer-songwriter Sam Smith, born on this day in 1992.
Okay, yeah.
I've got Ho Chi Minh was born on this day in 1890. In the sports world, I got Kevin Garnett, born on this day in 1976. Also on the same day, in 1976, we had former LSU kicker Wade Ritchie, born on this day in 1957 from the Detroit Bad Boys from the Pistons. Bill Laimbeer, and born on this day in 1949, the godfather of quarterbacks, Archie, or I guess now he's the grandfather of quarterbacks, Archie Manning. It's his birthday as well.
Nice. Also got Michael Che on this list.
Michael Che.
Moving on to deaths.
No, I had one more birthday.
Oh, okay.
And that was Johns Hopkins.
All right.
As in Johns Hopkins University.
Yeah.
He was born on this day in 1795.
All right. Pretty much the big major death today. Jackie Kennedy. That's at the top of my list.
Yeah. Jackie Kennedy died on this day in 1994. Anne Boleyn off with her head in 1536. And those were my two big ones. I didn't have it. No. Nathaniel Hawthorne died on this day in 1864.
Okay. As far as national days go, celebrate your elected officials day.
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Why not? All right. It's 8:15 to Talk 107.3 FM. I don't think we're going to be celebrating our elected officials in our next segment. It's Moon Griffon coming your way.
It's a good segue, right? It's a good segue.
Yeah. Oh. I got to record an interview at 9:15.
I see that.
Thank you, Byron. Byron says, it's sad that I remember this, but Corbin Burtonson was on the show to talk about his faith-based film. Yes, he was. Oh, which reminds me, I've got an interview requested for Kelsey Grammer.
Oh,
really? Yeah, I don't know if
that's
I'm going
cool.
to get him or not, but
Hey.
it's limited opportunity.
Oh, man. Kelsey Brown.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Let's see. I got Moon's number memorized better than when I have some of my family members.
It's about right.
Hey, Moon, it's John with Brian Haldane. Give me a call back when you can. All right. Called him twice. Went to work.
Okay.
Figured I'd leave him one.
No worries. Who would I consider my most famous guest interview? I really don't know that answer, because I don't know how to cross the streams between politics and entertainment. I'll answer that on the air right now, Troy. Hey, if we don't get Moon, we'll go back to the inmate story for the LRN cuts here. 818 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Waiting on Moon to hop on board here real quick. While I have a minute, let me remind you about the folks over at PF Chang's. You know where to find them in real life, right? You will find them off of Corporate Boulevard in Town Center. I tell you every day, look for the giant golden horse. What are you going to find when you get to PF Chang's? Some pretty fantastic specials right now. Lunch special starting at just $13.99. Dinner specials starting at $16.99. By the way, girls' night out every Wednesday. With the girls' night out, you get half off bottles of Prosecco and champagne. This started at the end of last month. It's continuing right now. So girls' night out going on right now. You've also got, there's so many specials. I don't know where to begin. Gift cards. Gift cards are super available right now. If you're looking for that Father's Day gift, not a bad idea there. I know I'd take a PF Chang's gift card for sure for Father's Day. But let's get back to that day-to-day menu there and some of the specials they've got going on, because you've got the black pepper chicken is like, I'm all about this right now. Okay. It is a crispy Korean style chicken, stir fried with onions and celery in a bold, savory black pepper sauce. There is just the right amount of punch to this, just the right amount of kick to it, if you will. Black pepper chicken. It's available on their menu right now over there at PF Chang's. Like we said, look for the giant golden horse. While we wait on Moon Griffon, I do want to take a moment of personal privilege. Yesterday was a big day, man. Over the weekend. So you had numerous high school graduations throughout the week last week. LSU's graduation was heading into the weekend as well. Catholic High graduated Saturday night, and then yesterday, St. Joseph's Academy had their graduation. And I got to tell you, that was long. No, it was a full-on mass with graduation ceremonies that followed. About 2.5 hours running time right there. Not real bad when you consider you got close to 300 members of the graduating class, plus you did full mass. Bishop Duca was celebrating the mass. I had no idea how I was going to do with my oldest daughter graduating. I honestly thought I was going to be a puddle of mush. I honestly thought at some point along the way, I'm just going to lose it. At some point along the way, I'm not going to be able to keep it together, and I'm going to just be pouring tears out of my face. Surprisingly, I held it together the entire time. Now I know full well that this is the preamble. I know full well that this is just the gearing up for when I have to drop her off at college this fall. And she's taking part in this program. My oldest daughter, Carrie, she's taking part in this program where she's going to go to school 3 weeks early. It's a scholarship program she signed up for. It's this in-depth dive into school, and she gets extra credits for it and whatnot. But I know full well that when August rolls around and it's time to open the next chapter, that's where I'm going to lose it. That right there is where I know, like, dropping the daughter off in a different city, in a different state even. So, yeah, somebody had asked over on Facebook, Troy had asked over on Facebook Live how I did through graduation yesterday. Not bad. Not bad at all. I made it through okay. But I've got this foreboding that it's just the precursor for more. I will say this, too. The makeup of who my daughter is plays into that, because I knew going in that high school graduation, she's not even hit her stride yet. I think that kind of plays into it as well. Like, there's a certain amount of me that just said, this isn't anything but the next step along the way. That played pretty well with me. So, in response to the question, how did I hold up? I did very, very well. There are some people that just act like an ass at a graduation. I'll never understand that. Can I go off on a little curmudgeonly? Like, I don't want to downplay anybody celebrating education, but man, just the louder this, No, stop, Brian. Stop right there. Don't go down the path to the dark side. Don't do it. Celebrating education is where that conversation needs to end. But man, some people just act like an ass.
Just go ahead and tell us about it.
No, I'm not going to do it. No, because it's such a weird thing. Like, they ask for, like, a conservative amount of applause. You'll clap, you'll scream, you shout the graduate's name. But this isn't the intro to a UFC match. This is a graduation. It is a formal occasion. And look, I'm not trying to be like all private school snotty about it, but at a Catholic school, it is following the celebration of the Eucharist. And look, if you're not Catholic, I understand, but you are at a Catholic celebration.
When in Rome, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Or in this River Center. Either way.
With graduations, right? There's one name following another. And if you're
still shouting, the next person can't hear their name. And that's what I'm getting at with don't be an ass. It shouldn't be that difficult. Now, it's only 2 or 3 of them. A lot of people found that, that nice groove, that nice window where you could shout, so-and-so's nickname. Like, you did it, Pookie. Or they shout something that's an inside joke for the person who's on stage. The person on stage, by the way, can't hear them. Everybody else hears the inside joke and doesn't get it.
Then there's that. Yeah.
But it's when it is prolonged, you step on the next person's, that's their moment. And that's their parents' moment. Their parents are sitting right in front of the people who are the loudest, Yeah.
No, I get it. I think a lot of people get it. I do.
I hope so. I hope so. I don't want to sound elitist.
No. You're not saying
it's
don't
2025.
celebrate.
If in 2025, high school graduation you're moving on to the next step. It's not the close of anybody's book. It's the opening of the next chapter.
That's right.
No matter where you're headed, if you're headed to college, if you're headed to a trade school, if you're headed to the military, no matter where you're headed, what you're going to do next is going to supersede what you've just done. This is not the culmination of anything. The word commencement means to commence, to move forward. Yeah, I sound totally elitist. I'm going to move on. Can we go back to the inmates that escaped out of the Orleans Parish Prison?
Yeah, let's talk.
Hooping and hollering.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
You can grab the LRN cuts for this one.
Got it.
I don't know how to segue from one point to the other. But the search continues for the 7 inmates who escaped from the Orleans Parish Jail on Friday. Go back to Colonel Robert Hodges. State Police Colonel Robert Hodges says there are multiple agencies that are involved in this manhunt.
Time that we have actionable intelligence on all 7 of those fugitives. And we hope in the coming days, if not the coming hours, that we have them all apprehended.
We need to lean on an expert here. I got to find an expert to dive into this to see what it takes going into an investigation of this sort. Are we full on Tommy Lee Jones and the fugitive here? Does it look like that in real life? Is that what it looks like in real life? Yeah, nobody's cornering Richard Kimball in a tunnel. You're not going to have the I didn't kill my wife, I don't care scene. None of these 7 guys are going to show up in a hotel ballroom yelling at a former business partner, you switched the samples. That's not happening in real life. What does it actually look like? That's what I want to know. Hodges says they're urging the public to provide tips and helping them locate the escaped inmates. The FBI, like we said earlier in the show, has doubled up their reward. You had the FBI's reward to ATF's award and couple that with the Crime Stoppers award. So you got just shy of $20,000 per inmate, mind you. Hodges says when it comes down to it, you do have the intelligence, but there is a level of elusivity to it too.
Unfortunately, they have friends and family members who are helping them and concealing them and helping them move, which makes law enforcement's job more challenging.
And there's also the whole, when they're looking for somebody, the first 48 hours make the biggest difference. We're beyond 48 hours now. But when they're looking for somebody in a crime, solving a crime, the first 48, they always talk about there. I have to wonder, does that play here as well? And when every second counts, how much time did OPP lag from the time they busted through the hole behind the turlet to the time they were on camera jumping off the front porch or wherever they actually exited from, to the time they wanted to admit that there was an actual jailbreak here, and then you get things started with actually looking. Back to Governor Landry. We played this essentially the same soundbite last hour. Talk about there's no excuse for what happened.
And the public deserves to know who, what, and how this happened. The responsibility for answering those questions will fall to the Attorney General.
And along with that, Landry is calling for an audit of the Orleans Parish Jail, which the Department of Corrections will conduct. The governor says the audit should be completed by the end of this week. Landry also wants the state's inspector general to get an inventory of the inmates in the Orleans Parish Jail who have been convicted of crimes but are still awaiting sentencing. Says one of the escapees had been awaiting sentencing for 8 months.
Derek Groves, the escapee, who pled guilty to manslaughter in October of last year and was awaiting sentencing. If he would have been sentenced by our court system, he most likely would not have had an opportunity to escape.
Now, the sheriff in Orleans Parish, Susan Hudson, says defective locks, a breached wall, and possible assistance from the inside led to what is believed to be the largest jailbreak in the state's history. The possible assistance from the inside part of this, I'm hard-pressed to believe that it will be anything else but. You don't just simply cut a hole in a wall and get out of a jail. Bigger picture here, though, is how much does this play? And, we talk about being safe versus feeling safe, and New Orleans' tourism reputation versus New Orleans' crime reputation. How much does this play for people who would otherwise be booking reservations to come to the Big Easy? Here comes news. A little bummed. You need Mark Wright's number. That's him. Cool. How long do I have? Yeah, play the weather. Well, yeah, I haven't opened anything up yet, so yeah. .837 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Let's take you right back inside the state legislature and welcome in State Representative Mark Wright. Welcome back, State Representative Mark Wright. How are you, sir?
Hey, doing well. How about yourself?
Doing all right on this end as well. I want to get an overview of how the session is going overall, but there is one bill of yours that I want to take a specific look at if we could. And I think you know where I'm going with this. Is that the port?
Sure. Yeah. That's become a little bigger than I think I or others expected. Saw this more as a just sort of paperwork process type bill this year. There's been a lot more engagement, than I think expected within the legislative process. Not to say that it's not an important bill and stuff like that, but this essentially was meant to allow the port to go out and take in bids for potentially doing this. And of course, at the same time, you've got the regional planning commission in the New Orleans area putting out 3 or 4, I think it's 3 alternatives as well. So I know a lot of people are behind it. I mean, I think you saw the governor came out last weekend and appointed Michael Heck as sort of his point person for this whole effort. You know, you've got federal money, you got state money, you've got a whole region dependent on it. So at the end of the day, I think it's going to go well, but you know, you just got to keep pushing it.
Well, and you're in front of the full house today, right?
Yes, this afternoon. That's right.
Yeah. This is the abstract of the bill says authorizes the Port of New Orleans to utilize public-private partnerships for the St. Bernard Transportation Corridor roadway project. And yeah, when the session first started, Mark, I breezed right past this, but it's gotten a lot of attention. Does this have the potential to like grow the port pretty big?
Yeah. So the port's plan over in essentially to create a new container terminal has been moving since 2018. There has been a variety of conflicts, but there's, you know, if you go look on their website about the Louisiana International Terminal, there's a ton of things that are there to read and be informed about. But so it's been moving for years. You know, there's always been this sort of debate about that terminal, LIT versus Plaquemines Port. I don't think there really is a debate about it. I mean, I think we've seen New Orleans progress, working, like I said, working with the federal delegation, working with the state and DOTD. It's just a really slow process, as you can imagine. I think Plaquemines Port has a lot to offer down the road, but you know, we really don't want to be in a case of having ports compete against each other. It's just not the kind of thing that we can afford to do, as far as I'm concerned.
No, absolutely not. I mean, this should be all about making sure that there's enough stop-offs for everybody to come through Louisiana. And not, you know, it's me or you, it's me and you is where it should be.
Yeah. And I think, look, here's the key part about this port that's super important. We read data stats about our ports on the lower Mississippi being, you know, huge cargo lifts, you know, export grain, things like that, which is all true. But at the end of the day, when you look at the data for the most, you know, money coming through ports, you know, add-on type of work, it involves containers, right? And we just don't have a lot of containers in Louisiana. New Orleans currently has something on the Nashville terminal a little further up, but it's the capacity is just not there. And part of it is because the ships are getting bigger and you can't move a container vessel past the bridges in New Orleans. So something had to be built, and that's where this Violet terminal is being put together, you know, slowly moving. And there's a lot of permits, obviously, with the Corps and stuff like that. But so that you could literally deliver at that port, it could be spread out to I-10 and a variety of other places, through rail, you know, everything you can imagine going through there. But it would create, I don't want to say a new market, but it would really put us in a different map and a different part of the map. Let's say that. And I think at the end of the day, you know, you won't see it immediately, but over time, in 5 to 10 years, it could really, you know, have an impact.
No, absolutely. We're talking with State Representative Mark Wright about the legislative session. And I wanted to start off on that economic development front because this is an area where Louisiana has continually, we've seen over the last year, a number of big wins. And when you have the potential to set the table on another front for big wins, I think it's worth noting, it's worth taking notice of, to say this is something we're doing well. Putting weapons in Susan Bourgeois' arsenal has proven to be beneficial from us, and I don't want to take my foot off the gas at all.
Hey, man, I am with you. I totally agree. I mean, there's a lot of change that has come about at the Capitol since, you know, the beginning of this term, but none more than some of these economic development projects, especially that bunch that came out after the holidays. You know, I mean, we kind of got caught up with the whole constitutional amendment fight for a period of time, but we can't lose, like, you know, the Hyundai steel plant. There's just a lot there which could maybe, I mean, completely change the narrative as far as I'm concerned, as far as our economy.
Well, and that Hyundai steel plant's a great example there, is because a lot has to be built out infrastructure wise to make Donaldsonville capable, and this superplex or whatever it's called in Donaldsonville, capable of handling the business that's coming to town. So when you're talking about laying the groundwork to handle big business on the back end, that's exactly why I lead with this.
No, look, amen. I mean, look, we've talked about this before, and I know a lot of people on the listening to radio know this, but so many of our problems are based on low growth or out migration, right? Like creating new jobs, having people come in, money being invested over the long run helps solve all these things we have fights over, including insurance. I mean, like literally, like having more new insurance companies come into the market, right? It's partly based on population growth and what kind of money your people are earning, right? So like, there's just so much to it. And I'm glad you focus on it because it's important.
Well, I'm glad you set the table for me to pivot right there and talk about insurance. I know you're not on the insurance committees, but what's the fight looking like from inside?
So I think on the House side, House Republicans, we were happy to see 5 bills move out of Jude A.
Mm-hmm.
There was always the conversation that, we passed a number of bills 2 weeks ago. Everybody knows some of them, I think don't have a chance, but like there's some that are less likely to move on than others, right?
Yeah.
And certainly we don't want to, we don't want to take a look at the Senate and push back on them right now. That let them do their work and let them make their decisions. But when those 5 came out, I think a lot of people were happy to see that move forward. The governor obviously is involved. He's got a number of insights on this, where he wants to go or not go. But he has mentioned, like, if the Wright bills pass or the bills that we put out through Senate come in, he's going to support them. So hopefully at the end of this session, we'll have a few that can be signed, that people will, be happy to work with. And it'll just be more added to our focus on the insurance markets.
We're talking with State Representative Mark Wright about the ongoing legislative session. Any word on, and I haven't dug into it yet, Mark, but any word on the 5 bills that made it through? Did they make them through intact, or are they just completely watered down?
That I can't answer, unfortunately.
No worries.
I do want to sit down and look at it. I don't think they were completely watered down. I don't think they're shells, right? I think there's probably some changes that were made, and I can't identify what they were, but I could tell you the authors and the people involved in that effort were pretty happy that they got through. So if that's the case, then, you got to believe you're doing some good stuff.
Got just a couple of minutes left with Mark Wright. Let's pivot over to the budget. It has cleared the House thus far. Your takeaways were what?
We know there's a couple of big things that we put out in our budget that, I think most of our supporters are happy about. I mean, the Louisiana Gator program, moving forward with that, the teacher stipend, that was a big discussion among the delegation. And I imagine as we move forward till the end of this session, you had an amendment that was voted down, and it was clearly tied to giving teachers a pay raise through, what we put out on the constitutional amendment. Should we go, do the stipend again, or should we say, okay, you voted this down, we can't do anything about it? I think the consensus was, and certainly my opinion is, let's try this one more time with the stipend. We've got obviously some bills coming through and potentially constitutional amendments. I think a lot of people didn't completely understand what we were trying to do, whether that's complexity, whether that's just bad communication, I don't know. But to me, it's a slam dunk. It is the way we did it and the way we're trying to do it now. It's like, we talk all the time about, you got to run government like a business. Like this literally was thinking this through from a business perspective and freeing up money and looking forward.
The difficult part, Mark, is that in a business, you can have a decision maker. And if you're looking at the state as a business, the decision maker being the legislative body did its job and then sent it out to the people, and the people derailed what the business was trying to do.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I don't know that I use all those terms, but look, you're fair to bring them up. I can get in trouble if I say some things, but
I don't worry about it. No, these are my words, not yours. Let's be very clear. These are my words, not yours. But it's like we had the ball in our hands, and we decided we like the way things have been done for the last 50 years, and the people who've taken advantage of us for the last 50 years. We didn't want to give the nod to the new class of folks that are in there with more transparency and more accountability than we've ever. I'm getting off of my soapbox again. I'm sorry. I'm gonna need therapy over CA2, man.
No, I'm with you. I already started. No, so listen, this is really the crux of the matter when it comes to dealing with Constitution and amendments that you put up for vote, right? We get paid as legislators, reps and senators to come to Baton Rouge, albeit at a part-time level, to learn about the issues, to identify the solutions, right, and to move forward with it. When you're voting on bills within the Capitol itself, statutory stuff, right, you know what that looks like, right? Sometimes that's a fight. Sometimes that's a smart decision. Let's move on. And I think that's what you were just talking about. But when you have to go explain a number of this to the public, the bottom line is they're certainly intelligent enough to understand it if they have time, if they have the capability of getting all the information that people like me have picked up over the years, because it just takes a good bit of time to see it all through and identify the solution. So what I'm saying is, like, these people who say, I'm a no on constitutional amendments, anything that's put up, you are literally like kicking the solution on the side of the road. The wheels have come off. You can't change anything, very little. Hopefully we'll get to that point where I think people are going to start to realize we're making smarter decisions. This is a good way to go. And hopefully, we'll see the fruits of it.
Look, I equate it to a toxic relationship. I mean, there's this whole mentality of like, the reason we have such a negative reputation, or reason politicians have such a negative reputation, is because of the last 50 years of politicians. We've got a new crop in there. We have the ability to leave a toxic relationship and enter into a new relationship here. But instead we say, thank you, sir, may I have another? And staying where we're at. Y'all did your job. That's my point.
Yeah, no. Well, look, in this case, we need to do it again, do it a little differently, and give it another shot. I was as depressed as you mentioned. I mean, like, literally, I'm in my last term. You know that this was what I really wanted to see change in this last term. Like, so much so that, like, if we got it passed, like, I could conceivably see me just kind of walking away, like, just retiring, so to speak, as a legislator. When it didn't happen, and I realized some of this, it was disappointing. But last thing, that session leading up to the constitutional amendment and that vote itself, okay, if you had told me the beginning of the session, you're just going to be able to do what you did in that session, I'd be ecstatic.
Yeah.
Part of the problem is we were so hyped up about all the change, especially the constitutional amendments that needed to change. I think we lost perspective on it, and hopefully the voters will see that in the future and vote it in, and we'll see real progress.
He is State Representative Mark Wright. We always appreciate the time. We'll check in at the end of the session for a recap, sir.
Sounds good, brother. Thank you very much. Appreciate
Always.
it.
Thank you. It's 8:52. We blew right past your money now because, well, I got agitated. We'll come back with the outside in next. 856 Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. We're going to wrap things up with the outside in just a minute. First, I got to remind you about the folks at Vex European. Vinny and his team at Vex European. Vinny, by the way, it's Vinny's Exotics is what it used to be called. Vex European is what they are now. They don't just service exotic vehicles. If you have a European vehicle, Mercedes, BMW, Jaguar, Land Rover, Audi, if you happen to be James Bond and you drive an Aston Martin, Vinny can help you out. Check out vexeuropean.com. Hit the little drop-down tab where it says vehicles. See if you see your make of vehicle on there. If you do, go ahead and schedule an appointment. Have a master-level technician who knows your make of vehicle. Not just like a really good mechanic. I mean somebody who knows your make of vehicle and make sure your vehicle's taken care of. When you buy a European vehicle, you expect performance and longevity. You get the most out of both when you visit vexeuropean.com. All right, time for the outside in. Let's roll. Starting off in West Baton Rouge Parish, John Foster's final performance on American Idol was Tell That Angel That I Love Her, a song he wrote about his friend Maggie Dunn. She and Caroline Gill were killed when a police officer chasing a suspect barreled through a red light and into their car on New Year's Eve of 2022. Foster, by the way, finished second on American Idol last night. Heading over to St. Tammany Parish, a deputy with the sheriff's office was fired and arrested after a, quote, workplace sexual harassment complaint Friday, according to the sheriff's office. 30-year-old Joshua Skiro was fired after an investigation done by the agency's Public Integrity Bureau, and members of the sheriff's office major crimes unit were asked to look into possible criminal charges. Skiro was booked for sexual battery and obscenity. Closing out in Lafayette, well, I guess we should touch back in on New Orleans. There are still 7 fugitives out there who busted out of OPP Friday morning. The reward as it stands right now, 10 grand coming in from FEI, 5 from ATF, 2 from Crime Stoppers, all combined together. Per inmate, by the way. Closing out in Lafayette, Parish School Board voted to raise the starting salary for teachers in the district at the board's meeting on Thursday night. Under the proposal from Superintendent Francis Touche, starting teachers with a bachelor's degree will see their pay increase from $47,607 a year up to 50 grand even. That is beginning with the upcoming school year. That is it for the outside in. That is just about it for us. If you missed any of the interviews, they'll be available on demand at talk1073.com. Looking forward to tomorrow's show already. Donnie Miller from the Ascension Chamber is going to hop on board at 7:15. We got a lot to talk about with Donnie. The Baton Rouge Area Foundation is slated to join us. We'll have Chris Meyer in at 7:35. We haven't checked in with the National Federation for Independent Business in a hot minute, so Leah Long will join us at 8:15. And as it stands right now, we are scheduled to have Congressman Troy Carter at 8:35 for DC Current, presented by LABI. And as I understand it, we'll have some breaking news for you as well. Right now, we got to get out of here. Moon Griffon is next. We'll see you tomorrow. All right, guys, I got to scooch. I've got an interview coming up at 9:15. But I've got like 3 phone calls I got to make in the interim because I've got word of some potential huge breaking news. I don't want to spoil it in the off chance that it's wrong. I don't think it's wrong. I trust the person who sent it to me, but I've only got one source right now. So, wouldn't be shot. Okay, well, that's not a confirmation. Anyway, we'll see y'all tomorrow. Later.